I'm Aswini Bajaj, a fourth year undergraduate at Apple University, Patiala, and an upcoming analyst at one of the top consulting firms in this world. Today we have a very special guest who has cleared almost every major finance exam, be it CA, CS, FRM, CIPM. He's also a YouTuber, a finance guru, and a career coach. And today on this podcast, he'll be sharing that how we can invest in ourselves in order to become a better individual. I'm talking about Mr. Aswini Bajaj, the CEO of Leverage Growth. So let's go to the video. Hi sir, it's a great honor to have you over here and welcome to this podcast. So sir, as we know that topic of this podcast is that how we can invest in ourselves in order to grow. So sir, starting with reading. Since childhood, we are forced to read boring books and gradually we develop a thought process where we see reading as a boring activity. So, sir, what is your stance on this?
See, one, you have to look at, in the context in which you see your upbringing, people around you, the culture, etc., all of that. So, कई बार होता है, I've seen people that, parents are like, कि कहानी की किताबें क्यों पढ़नी है, स्कूल की किताबें पढ़ो. So that also happens. So that has been the mindset with a lot of people. But a lot of people encourage a lot of reading as well. So comics nahi padhna hai, read your curriculum and all of that. But the idea is that, your interest develops probably through more of fiction. So there are books that you just cannot put down. Like Dan Brown is one of my favorite authors when I look at fiction. And I remember Harry Potter ka Deathly Hallows, the last book I read just before, I think it was class 12 boards, Hindi exam. And just before that, I just could not keep the book on the table. I just could not leave the book. So one has to first develop that interest, which happens only when you start reading. And even when I say that, when you're talking about fiction, you have to, gradually level up to non-fiction as well. And it is not that non-fiction is boring. It is a must in terms of reading. Like, for example, I say that, Intel CEO is talking to me in 3 hours for just 300 rupees through his book, High Output Management. So how he looks at in terms of output, or a Jack Welch through The Winning. So if I'm getting these kind of people to talk to me and they actually research thoroughly, put down all their thoughts together over a year or two or so, and then I get access to all of that information with a book, I think it's an absolutely amazing deal to go for it. It's just that one also needs to have that kind of an environment and encouragement from people. So I was just discussing this, I think a while back, that there was this somebody senior to me, and he had been seeing my post where I keep on posting around a book or something on Instagram, and he told me, तेरे को देख के मेरे को लग रहा है कि मेरा reading कम हो गया है. So that just clicked me that this is the kind of competition people should have. Instead of who's binge watched and who's completed which series and तूने ये नहीं देखा, तूने वो नहीं देखा. So this is the kind of people I would want to surround myself with, who encouraged me or who pushed me to read even more. And you Google up 10 things successful people do, and the top 3 with every single blog is going to be reading. So one has to know that, you have to read. There is no substitute to it, right? So, and you have to know exactly how to read. Like while making notes, and the book is talking to you literally. Right. It's a mentor, of course, not a substitute to a mentor, but of course it does mentor you and it talks to you. You'll have to, read the book in that spirit.
So, sir, speaking of mentor, we also know that world is so fast-paced that nobody have time to give to others on a regular basis. And keeping this in mind, how we can find a good mentor? Also, from where I see this, that finding mentor is also important to bust that ideological bubble which we surround us with.
So basically what happens is you have to earn your mentor, and most people do not understand that. I'll just share an example. So as you mentioned, it's really glad to hear that you have a couple of mentors whom you can approach. Similarly, I have about 4 or 5 people that, I seek different kinds of advices from. So if, say, for example, it's more of a financial advice, I'll go to one person to discuss. If there is more of a office-related, operational-related something, then I'll go to a second person. So it's good to have mentors who can guide you in different facets of your life. Of course, there is no substitute to a mentor. But what I believe is you have to earn your mentor. So I'll just share an example of mine. So there's this person I had interacted, I think just after passing my chartered accountancy exams and for a job. And it's just that it was barely a 10-minute meeting. met him for the first time, and he had this very spiritual, a very good vibe. He's the HR head of a company. He's retired now, very senior. And the way he started the meeting and the discussion was that, I just prayed for a minute that I'm able to provide you with the correct guidance. And he told me that I'm not a fit for that company because what I was looking at in terms of my career and what the company required were two different things. And we ended that conversation over there. And I don't think I interacted with him for a year and a half or so. But it just somehow happened that I reached out to him and asked him a few as well. And he gave me a book and asked me to read the book Karma Yogi. And I read that book. And then he also told me that you're supposed to be, so I went again with a few questions. He told me that every morning, 6 o'clock, I need a WhatsApp from you stating that you have completed today's Gita reading. So Sridharan, the metro man, the one who's behind the metro railways of Delhi, he recommended always his team to, read the Gita from a life management and a management perspective. And so he was, he's the one who completed the metro within the budget and within the time frame, which is quite appalling in our country, unfortunately. So I started reading the version he recommended to me. And he said that every day you'll have to do this for the next 21 days or 30 days or so. And I started messaging him. I would complete my reading, get up early in the morning, complete the reading and message him at 6 a.m. or before 6 a.m. And I did that for a few days. And then he told me that, now it's sorted. You don't have to message me anymore. Just continue. So most of the people, if I advise this, would not take the advice, would not do the needful. They would not be able to earn that mentoring. So when you're trying to get that time from somebody, that effort from somebody, there is no monetary reward involved in that. The person is just doing because he wants you to grow. He wants you to not make those mistakes that he or she has made. Now you have to deserve that person's time, affection, and effort for yourself. You'll have to earn that. So yes, of course it will take time. It is a matter of chance as well, where you encounter such a person, such a mentor in your life, but you'll have to earn your mentor. So when you do encounter a person like that, you'll have to earn your mentor. So that is something that most people are not able to do because they do not want to put in that effort. If you do not want to put in that effort for your life, then why would somebody else, bother giving you advices when you're not going to follow it anyways?
Right, got it, sir. Also, sir, it is often said that your network is your net worth. And speaking of this, our friends are the family which we choose. So, sir, when you make friends, what are the qualities or what are the factors that, based upon which you judge, and now then you think, okay, he or she can be a good friend of mine, and then you go on to develop a quality relationship?
They're not your friends. So friends and network has to be treated as two different things.
Okay.
Socializing is not networking. So you want to understand what is networking, probably take up an Adam Grant's Give and Take book or something and read about it. So where people think that, I'm socializing, I'm meeting people over a hookah and everything, and they think that is socializing and building network, then they're absolutely incorrect. Because in network, there has to be a give and take. There has to be a lot more than that. When you're looking at friendship, again, what happens is that you cannot have 20 best friends, because then you cannot be giving expectations and standing up to those expectations for 20 odd people. It's not possible. So the problem is that is where people kind of get messed up with the kind of circle that they build, because it becomes so extensive that it is difficult to manage. I personally feel that it is very difficult to get good friends, and it is very rare that your friends are going to actually enable you. Because if, say, for example, somebody is studying more, a friend is going to be more often mocking you that itna kyo padna hai tumko, chill karo na. That is what you probably hear from most people around. But then, there are friends who would enable you. If you're working more or if your work hours are more stringent, there would be friends that, it's fine, we'll catch up later, we'll get back later. Friends would adjust timings for each other and just not look at their own personal convenience. They would not get jealous of you moving forward and you moving ahead, but rather they would be more of an enabler. So you figure out who are such friends of yours, who push you to have better habits and not say that, chalta hai, ek sutta maar le mere saath, and then encourage you to get into those habits. So I know Bollywood has kind of demeaned the meaning of friendship also in a lot of cases. And social media also builds up a lot of these things and kind of subconsciously impacts you into thinking what friendship is all about. But this is how I look at it personally. And fortunate to have, even if you have like a couple of these kind of people, I think you should be counting your blessings. And fortunately, I do have such kind of people around me. So I mean, I don't know if people call me blunt, but I like to give the right expectation to people. People know that who can call me at 12 p.m. at night, and even then they cannot call me directly. They'll call me through my mother because they know my phone is always on silent. So, and it's barely a few people who will have her number. So, that is how it works. So I am very clear in terms of what expectations I can give to people. So it uncomplicates the relationships a lot. So distinguish between your friends and network, and don't try to blur the line between the two.
So moving ahead, I mean, I've seen great leaders teach in order to, update themselves and in order to grow, including you. I mean, you also teach. So how do you see this particular teaching as an investment in yourself in order to educate yourself and in order to grow?
See, one, because of teaching, I have become very patient. Okay. And there are a lot of changes, I would say, that I have over the years, with experience, with practice, I have inculcated probably. So that's been a good part. Second is, when you're teaching, you have to know things very thoroughly, in depth, because otherwise, if you do not understand it very well, you cannot explain it very well. You also have to have really good communication in order to be able to explain something, simplify something for the other person. Given that, what happens is, and when you're teaching regularly across levels, across different areas, particularly for me, it is finance. So you build a mastery, or you build a certain level of expertise into it. And because of that, what happens is the consulting aspect or the business aspect becomes very good. So when I'm consulting, say, for example, when I'm doing a valuation for a startup, or I'm working on a equity report for a brokerage house or something. So when I'm doing that, and my team is working with me on that, so the moment they have an error, the moment they have a question, the moment they are stuck somewhere, I can, most often, I'm quickly able to give them a direction to move. That, this is how you can go about it. Because I'm able to connect all the, the valuation methodologies, let's say, or all the approaches or everything, because I have imbibed that content, because I have to teach. So that way it has been very, very helpful. And it is also interesting because, you keep on, the students also keep on challenging you. They have questions, you have to answer, you have to be absolutely on your toes. So you have to keep on updating, reading, studying, updating your examples. For example, say suppose, so if I'm teaching a batch, obviously I need to know what's happening in the economy, the environment and all. And my subject is such that it is very integrated with business, economy, politics, everything that is happening around you when I'm teaching finance. So it's extraordinarily interesting. So I'm very happy.
So in a nutshell, we can say that it's teaching help us in keeping theoretically up to date. I mean, as in we can go buy the books at some place.
Not just theoretically. Because if you're teaching, you have to connect it to how things are happening around in the economy and connect that. Otherwise, how do you teach? And especially when I'm looking at a grad or a post-grad level in terms of finance.
Got it. So, sir, the next question which I have is more of a personal question. Sir, you run a YouTube channel with around 75,000 subscribers. You are very active on LinkedIn and have a huge following over there. You run a consulting and valuation company. You are into teaching. So, sir, how do you keep yourself, how do you keep up with all those things? And also, how do you make sure that you're creative as well? Because after a time, everyone reaches a saturation. But in your case, I mean, I have been following you since last 2 years. 2 years back, you gave a lecture at my college, and since then I know you. And to be very honest, I mean, I've seen you growing, to be very honest. So how do you keep up with all those things, and how do you make sure that you're creative as well?
So one is, I think you need not be complacent. So you can't say that I know everything. I never say that I know everything in finance. I'm still studying. So one is, you're continuously learning, growing, reading, working hard. You cannot be complacent at all, because when you're looking at the economy and when you're looking at everything, it's changing so quickly that you need to be absolutely, at par with the movement. That is one. Second, with respect to the social media and all, so I don't have a strategy, or I don't, do those typical. First of all, I don't think of myself, and I don't like to call myself as an influencer or something. And I don't look at social media as a job or something. I'm actually not very active on LinkedIn at all. And YouTube is also, I'm very irregular in terms of posting, because whatever I post is a byproduct of what I'm reading, my experience, my thoughts. I go through chats and questions and everything of hundreds of students. So I understand their pain points. I understand what they are facing, their challenges. I start reading around it. I start thinking about it. I start gathering my thoughts. And I am a very... so I never had a picture or anything posted on any of the social media during college or throughout college and all, until I got into this profession. After getting into this profession, it became inevitable that I need to be connected, and I need to probably, share my experiences and thoughts. So I am not very comfortable with social media, and but it's just that, it's more of a byproduct of my thoughts and everything that I post. So I don't follow a pattern or something like that. And so I'm very skeptical about posting on social media. Therefore, I do a lot of thinking. I'm very thorough in terms of my thought process before I'm posting something. So I'm very sure about posting something before doing so. So I'm very skeptical. So if there are 100 articles I'll read, I'll probably just share one. If there are 20 thoughts I have in my mind, I'll probably just share one. So that's probably one of the reasons why it's relatively, I try to be as genuine as possible, because I'm a little blunt also on social media at times. Some people find it a little heavy to see what kind of posts I do on Instagram or any of those. So they might find the content heavy, but I feel that, I don't want to level down. People need to level up if they want to understand what I'm writing, or if they want to, pause and think and take that moment, because normally you are scrolling through dancing videos or cat videos or God knows what videos. So in between that, if I'm sharing something which is a relatively more serious kinds or so, so it's for those people who want to get that. So the creativity, there was another very strange question I got from a kid a while back, that, since you asked me about how to be creative and how do you keep up the creativity quotient. So this guy asked me a very strange question that, how thinking that, how do I answer this question? So the one thing that I can think of is that, you need to know more. So if I know 100 things, or if I have 100 examples, at the right moment, I'll probably be able to quote a couple of them. If I have 100 sarcastic comments or hundreds, ironic comments to make or something, I'll be able to make 2 or 3 at the right time. So you need to know more, you need to observe more, you need to know more about different things, be it politics, be it spirituality, be it movies, be it books, so that, you're able to click. You have to be very interesting in terms of being creative, but the right kind, of course. So yeah, that's I think about it.
Got it, sir. So now moving towards one of the last question. I mean, it's not the last, it's kind of second last. Sir, in India, we say that सबसे बड़ा रोग कि क्या कहेंगे लोग. As in, we always look for people's opinion कि वो लोग क्या कहेंगे, and उस हिसाब से we do our activities, or we decide what to do and what not to do. And sometimes it becomes difficult for us to say no to a situation or to a person. राइट ना, लोगों को ना कहना काफी मुश्किल हो जाता है, केवल ये सोच के कि वो बुरा मान जाएगा. So how can we, reduce that mentality, and we can make it, we can normalize, how can we normalize saying no to people?
See, one is you have to understand that there's always going to be a trade-off. So right now, if say, for example, we are doing this session, I could be out with a friend or something the day, and I'm done with a very hectic day, but it's a trade-off and it's a choice, and I'm very happy doing this. So there's been a long time where, since COVID, I'm not having like a regular weekend class, but now again, it's back to weekend classes. But earlier, I would have to choose that, yes, on a Saturday and Sunday, full day, 12 hours, 10 hours a day, I'm doing my lectures and everything. And I'm not getting all those weekend trips and all. So if I'm going to be cribbing about it, it's going to be a problem. But you have to understand and accept the trade-offs and be absolutely comfortable saying no. You have to also give, as I said, the right expectations to people, because then people might consider me rude, people might consider me blunt, but one thing that they don't consider me is dishonest. And I don't beat around the bush. So I'm very clear on things. Instead of saying that I'm coming in 5 minutes and repeating that over a half an hour period, you rather say that I'm half an hour late, I'll be late by 30 minutes. So you wrap up calls if you have, you do something in that 30-minute time frame, you sit somewhere, have a coffee or something. So I think that's always better. So instead of dodging the question, instead of, it's always better to be very clear and say things what you mean. It gives the right, approach, right expectation again to the people, what they can and they cannot ask you, what they can take you and cannot take you for granted. For example, there was this friends. So basically, both of my friends are married to each other, and it was the wife's birthday, and my friend called me up that at 12 o'clock be there. And I was like, 12 o'clock not possible because I go off by 10 and I have to get up at 5. I'm not going to be disrupting my sleep pattern and have an unproductive day tomorrow just because your wife was born on that day. So I'm sorry, I'm out. So I was very clear. So if somebody takes it rudely, it's their problem. He knows me very well. He'll not take it otherwise. And he knows that I'm not going to be up at 12 o'clock. And if he is such a good friend, then you can also plan your birthday party in the morning at a breakfast at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. You can do that yourself. So it's a two-way street, right? So I'm very comfortable being very, very brutally honest. So it's just going to take some time for people to adjust to that. But it makes everybody's life very simple, because there are things that they would not call me for because they know that I'm not going to be turning up for it. And there are things where they make place and time for me in terms of, my schedule. And so it has to overlap. So my requirements and the other person's requirements have to overlap. And second, when you're talking about what people would say. So I've seen people taking decisions that, this is my life, I'm planning this way, but they're not working hard to make it work. For example, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be taking this approach. Let's say, for example, I'm going to be taking my CAT exams. That you're going to be preparing in the third year. What are you doing in the first and second year? Nothing. So then if you say that log kya kahenge and people, what will people say, then obviously they've got a point to make. The point is that you need to work double hard in order to make sure that whatever decisions you're taking is going to lead to where you want to be. So when you say that, अगर आप सपोज बोल रहे हैं कि मैं पढ़ाई कर रहा हूँ या मेरा एग्जाम है and आप घर में बैठ के टीवी देख रहे हैं, तो पेरेंट्स से दो बात सुनना पड़ेगा. No, this is a relatives function, is very important, you have to go. But if they see you that you're studying and actually working very hard towards something, and you've taken a break, that is also fine. And you need that break to relax and all of that, and not attend a relatives function or something. So in that case, they'll understand. But if you're just loitering around all the time and just not doing something productive and proving yourself or working towards your goals and ambitions, then obviously people will say. So then if you quote that log kya kahenge and therefore I don't bother about what people say, then you're wrong. You're fooling everybody around. I mean, you're fooling yourself, not everybody around. And but if you're working hard towards what you're doing, then you don't need to bother. So I remember when I came back to Calcutta, and there was one function I had attended, and there was somebody who asked that, what does he do? And there's another person who replied on my behalf before I was able to say something, that he's teaching kids. So the exact words were "Tabra na padhawa." So I did not even attempt to explain what I do, because I thought that one, even if I'm teaching kids, I think it's an absolutely brilliant and noble profession. I am what I am because of the teachers who taught me throughout. And I don't need to prove to somebody, I don't need to explain to somebody what a corporate training means, what guest lectures for B schools are, what teaching for professional exams is, what kind of consulting I do. So at times people may not have that acumen to understand what you're up to and what you're doing. So you don't need to think about people then, provided you're working very hard to, achieve what you want to and get where you want to.
Now the last question is somehow related to this question, that we Indians have a mentality of seeking validation rather than feedback. If I go to a friend, or I used to do this, मैं let's say if I'm working on something, मैं उसके पास जाऊंगा and I'll ask कि ये मुझे करना चाहिए कि नहीं, rather than asking कि मैं इसको better कैसे बना सकता हूँ, I'll ask him यार ये मुझे करना चाहिए कि नहीं. Okay, let's talk about this podcast. So before starting this podcast channel, I might have spoken to 10 friends of mine with the same question, करना चाहिए कि नहीं, rather than asking them कि मैं इसको कैसे better बना सकता हूँ. So validation versus feedback. So how we can switch more onto the feedback side?
I think both are important, I would personally say. And it depends on whom you're approaching, for which. So firstly, I do my due diligence, I do my homework before getting into something. I'll talk to a few people and I'll simply ask the question that, do you think this is going to work out? Do you think this is a good idea? So then you're seeking validation because you're at that stage to seek validation. Then you direct your question very clearly that, should I do this or should I not do this? Once you're comfortable, once you're sure that yes, this is something I want to do, you're done with the validation phase, then you reach out to people and then you ask them for a feedback. You ask them that, how can I do this better? Are you liking this, not liking this? What are you not liking? How can it be improved? So instead of blaming it on the other person that, I'm asking for a feedback and I'm getting a validation or I'm getting a question with respect to should I or should I not, frame your question very directly and in a very clear manner. So at times, there are decisions I take and I'm sure that I have decided on something, then I don't question around it. That say suppose, I'll have to think of something good. So say suppose I've decided to enter into a venture, let's say. So we are working on an app, let's say. So I have already done my due diligence. I have my understanding and I have decided I want this. So then when I'm talking or discussing at home or in office or whatever, I don't ask whether I should or should not. I tell them that I'm doing this. Are you on board? Yes or no? That is first question. And second, how do I go about it? So how do I go about it? I'm not asking whether I should or should not. So then the question and the frame of question changes. So I don't want to get into that kind of a debate and all where there is no question already. As in I've already decided on something. I might as well take the question forward beyond that. So it's how clearly you articulate your thoughts and your questions. So one, you have to be clear about the question you ask. And before asking, you need to have your thoughts penned down. So you have to think about all the pros and cons. You have to do the due diligence. You talk to people. You don't have to give them the idea. You don't have to ask them a direct question. Like say, for example, I want to buy a car. So I will not ask them which car should I buy. I can simply discuss about car with a couple of my friends who are enthusiasts and follow cars, let's say. And then I frame my thoughts and I decided this is what I want to do. And then I go ahead and take that decision. So then the question is not around validation as such. Right? So you have to be more clear in terms of your thought process and frame your questions very clearly.
So sir, with this, we are done for the evening, and thank you so much for taking out time for this. And it was a great honor to host you and to have you over here.
Thank you and most welcome. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.